What's the weirdest thing you've ever done in secret? I would tell you what mine is, but I don't want to. I had a buddy who cut a little hole in his bedroom floor so he could get into the basement. He put a little trapdoor in there and he thought that was a pretty good effort, and so did I, until his mum was cleaning and she fell through it. This story, way, way bigger, so keep listening because you'll be amazed.
We can start this one as the world did with the February 27th, 1870 edition of the New York Times.
You know, I start most days with that.
Yeah, I get it.
Because, you can't read it just once.
Certainly the most novel, if not the most successful enterprise that New York has seen for many a day was launched yesterday under Broadway. A myth, or a humbug, has hitherto been called by everyone who's been excluded from its interior, but hereafter the incredulous public can have the opportunity of examining the undertaking and judging of its merits. Yesterday, it was thrown open to the inspection of visitors for the first time, and it must be said that every one of them came away surprised and gratified.
So many things that could be.
Many expected to find a dismal, cavernous retreat under Broadway, but they opened their eyes at the elegant reception room, the light, the airy space, and the general appearance of taste and comfort in all the apartments.
So we are literally under Broadway.
Literally under Broadway, yeah.
I thought there was some kind of lesser show. We call it on Broadway, off Broadway, under Broadway.
Believe me, I would go first to the under Broadway plays. Love Broadway?
Would you?
Maybe.
What are you hoping to find?
I'm expecting like vampire plays or something. I don't know, zombies.
What if it's actually vampire?
Morlocks.
What if it's actually vampire?
Undergraduates.
Harsh. I like undergraduates. Will's just too fancy.
And those who entered to pick out some scientific flaw in the project were silenced by the completeness of the machinery, the solidity of the work, and the safety of the running apparatus. Other newspapers joined in. The Herald. The New York Herald, I guess.
Failing New York Herald.
They talked of the fashionable reception held in the bowels of the earth. The Sun, a bit of a conflict of interest, pointed to the fact that the waiting room is large and elegantly furnished apartment, cheerful and attractive throughout. And Scientific American, again, super egregious conflict of interest, declared this means the end of street dust, upon which uptown residents get not only their fill, but more than their fill, so that it runs over and collects on their hair, their beards, their eyebrows, and floats in their dresses like the vapor on a frosty morning. Such discomforts will never be found in the tunnel. Welcome to The Wholesome Show.
Podcast that secretly digs into the whole of science. It's not good enough for me. Why do you mean, like worms a finger into the... I've ruined the next episode.
The Wholesome Show is me, Will Grant.
And me, secret digger Rod Lamberts.
Secret digger?
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's not a secret anymore.
Just note on sources here. There's a few out there. But the original 1870 illustrated description, I won't give the full title now because is great, as are Robert Daly and Oliver Allen's articles in American Heritage, and, of course, a whole bunch in Scientific American, in particular by Doug Most.
Doug Most.
Alfred Ely Beach came from a family of pretty damn rich inventor newspaper types. Yes. Look, there is family tradition here of both inventing and newspaper. His father, Moses Yale Beach, had invented a gunpowder engine for propelling balloons.
Gunpowder engine? Isn't that a bullet? There goes the balloon.
I think it's strapping a cannon to the edge of a hot air balloon.
I mean...
I apologize. I've got no more on that.
Don't apologize. My mind is going crazy.
He also invented a rag cutting machine for cutting up rags.
Is it scissors?
Yeah, but lots of them. It's
like 2 scissors?
And he also invented the Associated Press system of print syndication. One of these inventions made him fat stacks of cash.
Is it the scissors?
No.
No, I have no idea.
And sadly not the gunpowder balloon system.
Well, that's because you got to give it time for people to really get on board.
Anyway, Moses Yale Beach.
Yeah.
Papa Beach. He bought the New York Sun. And then through a reporting model that focused on crime, deaths, divorces, and hoaxes, like the Great Moon hoax of 1835.
It wasn't a hoax, man.
Yeah. And a business model that focused more on advertising rather than subscription.
It used the balloon cannon.
Probably did. That's how you get to the moon. Yep. But yeah, he turned the business model around from previously you'd subscribe to a newspaper, and he's like, well, what if we sold it cheap and got advertisers. And he turned it into the biggest newspaper in America. Like
Cool.
it was just, and then syndication came along and they were a pretty rich family.
Yeah.
Anyway, enough of Mothers. Young Alfred followed in his dad's footsteps, doing a whole bunch of inventing and newspapering, and knowing that while it was fine to dream big, it's important to respect an honest day's work.
Did they have a lot of conflict? Because Rupert Murdoch was already alive and functioning at that point, right?
Doesn't seem to have had a lot of conflict.
Because what? Were he
Rupert
18?
Murdoch
Yeah, he was already alive. Because he's always 204, right? Give or take.
Close.
Not that he listens.
Close.
We respect you, Rupert.
He might listen. Born in Springfield, Massachusetts in 1826, Alfred Beach went to a fancy private school called the Monson Academy, but he also started working from a pretty young age. And some people reckon he never really had a youth. He just started working.
Just like us.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, exactly. Like podcasting from the age of 6.
Came out of the womb with a microphone.
He started as a street newsboy. I mean, his dad's got a newspaper and it's like, get out on the streets. Extra. Yeah, literally. Extra, read on. Like that guy, which sounds like a fun job to me. From there, he moved on into the press room.
That would suit you.
Where he, what?
That job would suit you.
Why are you critiquing me?
Enthusiastic.
It's like, the news.
I know, no matter what, you'd be happy. I'll be there going extra. Who gives a shit? If academia and podcasting doesn't work out.
I'm not going to invent a time machine to go back and be a newspaper boy.
But you hold up an iPad instead.
Yeah.
You'd rent the time.
Would have been fun. He moved up from the newspaper boy to the typesetter kid.
Not
where
the newspaper man.
They're putting the links,
dropping all the letters in.
All the letters in.
Holy shit, what a horrible job.
Could you believe it?
Oh.
And of course you need kids to do it because fine fingers. Like you want nice small text, and so you've got to type out the
nice small fingers.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, so he emerges each day covered in ink and sweat, and I imagine it was a hard day's work.
And also, most of the sweat wasn't his.
Sure. The other newsprint boys.
Mm-hmm.
Then he worked up. He went up into the newsroom. First, he's doing some menial accounting work, and then to work as a reporter. So he's learning the family business.
Okay, you can't write English, but fuck with the numbers, the money. That's fine. Where are you going to start me? Emptying bins, cleaning the desk?
I assume he's looking after like payments from advertisers or something like that.
Nonetheless,
like learn the family business.
And I'm guessing he's 8 years old at the time.
It's something like that. I don't have a number on that.
I wouldn't have thought newsboy, print type, accountant. That's not the evolution I would have expected. I would have thought there would have been a couple of steps in the middle.
He's just working his way around the family business.
Sure, just not the order I expected.
So in 1845, when he was 19, he decided, I feel like I want to strike out on my own.
Yep.
I've learnt the family business. Now I want to have my own impact on the world.
I'm 19. Where's my empire?
And he ran into a young guy from Massachusetts called Rufus Porter. Now, Rufus Porter, just a few months ago, I think like 5 or 6 months ago, had published the very first issue of a weekly magazine that is still going and is still considered an august part of our landscape, Scientific American.
Hey.
So Scientific American was born 1845-ish.
Okay.
At the time, it was 4 pages long.
That's not a magazine.
No. It's a front and back. But
it's not a magazine. That's a piece of paper folded in half.
Just remember, they have to have little kids to put all the letters in place here. And
still not a magazine. Just because it's difficult, it doesn't become a magazine. Like I can do a whole bunch of difficult things. That doesn't make them magazines.
What's your criteria for magazine?
8 pages.
8 pages. Well, okay.
Actually, no, that's still maybe a brochure. That's on the line.
Well, Rufus was not very good at Scientific American.
Oh.
So 4 pages long and sold at a subscription of $2 a year. So you buy a year's worth and it doesn't all come at once.
I'd buy it for $2 a year.
Totally. The first edition that Rufus put out included a note from Rufus Porter explaining how useful he believed his publication could be. As a family newspaper, it will convey more useful intelligence to children and young people than 5 times its cost in school instruction.
Now, I've read Scientific American.
Do you think it's a youth educated
magazine? It
magazine?
is a bee's dick off an actual journal the way it's written.
Oh, it is dense. It is learned.
Not for the children's.
Anyway, it's published every Thursday, filled with original engravings of new inventions, improvements or ideas. And look, I got to confess, I got to that moment of early Scientific American new inventions. Maybe I just want to do a deep dive there. That is for another episode.
Yeah.
I promise you. I
love that it's engravings too. That's awesome.
Yeah, of course, engravings, improvements or ideas, scientific essays, poems, and also some moral and religious musings.
welcome to partially scientific American.
But yeah.
Okay, somewhat scientific American.
Thems, they were different times.
Poems and religious musings.
Anyway, Rufus Porter,
Yeah.
he was keen on Scientific American, but he got to a point and he's like, actually, I just want to get back to painting. He's an artist.
Painting.
Yeah, yes, he's a portrait painter, and Scientific American wasn't doing.
Why not whack portraiture in there too, next to the poems and the religious musings? I don't see a problem with that.
And then it would have become Portraiture America or something different. But anyway, Porter wanted out, and Beach wanted in.
Right.
Beach, he's from his family business.
Mm.
He was like, okay, you can make a mozza out of newspapers.
Yes.
But also he's a big believer, as I said before, in the inventing thing. So Scientific American is ticking a whole bunch of boxes.
Yeah, makes sense.
He didn't quite have the money to go it alone. So he hooked up with an old school friend called Orson Mund. Very 19th century name there. And the two of them paid $800.
That's a dude who actually bathes in a high collar and bow tie.
Probably.
Like literally, I mean, one must have a sense of decorum.
Orson Mund. They paid $800 for the magazine and its subscription list of 200 names.
800. So one subscription for a year is $2. So for the price of 400 subscriptions, they bought the magazine.
Yeah, exactly.
That sounds fucking cheap.
Yeah, yes. I think Porter didn't want to do it anymore, but it does sound like if you've got those names already, you get payback in 2 years' time.
Yeah, when you think about it, like what is an annual subscription to a decent magazine is what, a few $100 bucks? Now? By 200, that's still not a shit ton of money comparatively.
The idea of making a living off 200 subscriptions, that's, anyway.
Not so much.
That purchase marked the beginning of a long friendship between Orson Mund and Alfred Beach. The partnership at the magazine lasted at least 50 years, or nearly 50 years. And they would go on to produce what is still one of the key magazines in the science communication landscape. As soon as Beach and Mund took it over, they learned that the inventors of the day saw real value in their magazine. Inventors, they didn't want a portrait painter guy at the top. They wanted a dreamer, who I'll tell you about Beach in a second, like them, to help them with their inventions, get in front of investors and people like that.
Was this actually said out loud? Like, we hear he's a portraitist?
I don't know. I didn't see any critique of Rufus Porter. There might have been. But people saw in Beach a fellow traveler. And absolutely, 100%. Beach was the person for Scientific American.
Cool.
I mean, it says they were, part of this is the sort of official history of Scientific American. Beach and Mund had barely settled into their offices in 1846 when they were besieged with letters from inventors, sometimes with unannounced visits. Like people would just come in with inventions and saying, I've got this thing, can you get it in front of people?
Can you imagine the queue?
Oh, I know.
People standing with things strapped to their heads, blowing smoke and steam and weird stuff on their bums. It would be amazing.
And 19th century inventions are all contraptions. Like I would have called it Contraption America.
Yep.
But they would have been beautiful sorts of whistling. Beep, beep, beep.
Yeah, and made out of the finest metals and timbers. It'd be delicious.
Yeah, everything's walnut. It's a good invention if it's walnut and teak.
Brass.
Yeah, and a lot of brass.
A little bit of gold if it's a really fancy one.
So that they're all the same sort of thing. Help me apply for a patent and secure it and get me in front of the investors and I'll pay whatever it takes. And so inventors just loved him.
They just assume if it's in the magazine that
it was a huge pathway to all of this.
Okay.
So he always and every impression that I get out of Alfred Beach is he's a total good guy. He is just
not a villain?
Not a villain at all. He is super kind, super courteous, super helpful the whole time.
Damn.
There's a bit where it described the only things he did in life. The only thing he did for pleasure was going to the opera, and working out. Like the
only thing
he worked out and he went to the opera. Other than that, it was like all his time was for family and inventing and inventors. Like he did nothing. It was
not a little quiet time in the WC.
Hated vacations. Didn't go to the toilet.
Now these aren't synonyms.
You're the one that said WC.
You're the one who comes back.
I'm just extemporizing.
I was just a wonder. You'd come home out at work. You'd come back and you go, "Oh, I just had a quick vacation." It's like I didn't realize you meant had a poo poo.
But he seems to have found what he liked in life.
Yeah,
and just devoted himself into it. Like he loved Scientific American. He loved invention.
Awesome.
And he loved his family. And he loved working out and opera. And that's it. So don't do anything else.
Aspiration.
Anyway, a whole bunch of famous inventors came through his office. So Samuel F.B. Morse, inventor of
Samuels.
Yes. R.J. Gatling.
The guy who made RJs famous because the reverse joints.
Reverse joints. Thomas Edison.
Oh no, he did light phones.
And it was I like this little story. It was out to Alfred Beach at Scientific American that Thomas Edison took his first phonograph. Like he brought,
Okay.
he brought it into Alfred Beach at Scientific American. And he said, and Beach is like, oh, what's that?
Was it huge?
And Edison,
could he carry it, or is it like
I
back in 4 donkeys?
I don't have a physical description. I feel like it probably was huge-ish. I don't know. And Edison's so Beach says, what's that? And Edison's like, it's my talking box. And for a moment, Edison grinned at him with pride. Beach gazed at the handle which jutted from the box.
Uh-huh.
And Edison's like, well, cranks are made for cranking. And he began to turn the handle. And the machine, and this is a great way of demonstrating your product. The machine straight away says, good morning, sir. How do you like the talking box? Which I
mind blown.
You would have been, you've never seen anything like that before. And the idea of, like, Edison has come in here. He's obviously recorded his voice before on whatever the disc is. And
the wax
you
cylinder.
crank the handle and out comes your voice out of there. That 1846 or whatever it was. No, this is a bit later. But
so I assume the idea of capturing sound did not exist.
Did not exist. There is no, Edison invented that. Like, we know how many inventions, and to just bring in a box and drop it on the editor of Scientific American's desk and go, crank the handle, man.
That would have impressed me even more than the first time I saw the touchscreen iPod.
Yep. Indeed.
And I wanted to lick that,
But
so I can't imagine what I would have done.
You wouldn't have even thought that was a thing that you would do.
At all. Yeah.
Like voice goes out, but there's no physicality to it.
What do you mean there's capture?
It would have been.
That's wild.
He also on behalf of struggling inventors, he argued thousands of patent cases going up to Washington all the time when he was young. And in just a few years, Beach had turned Scientific American into the most successful, powerful, and influential weekly of its kind. This is Scientific American's history. It was to become a beacon of light for an age which otherwise might not have been ready for astounding scientific advances.
So that was in their words.
In their words.
A beacon of light for an age.
So anyway, I said that he had that the family business.
Yep.
That's the newspaper in Scientific American. Yep. Also inventing. Because while he's hearing other people's inventions, he's doing his own.
And a pool cleaning service.
Possibly. Patent lawyer was his third job.
That's what I meant.
He did some pretty good inventing himself. The first one was the world's first practical typewriter.
Oh.
Like, this guy invented the typewriter. It's not a small thing.
So he sees the first iPod and goes, yay, and then he builds a typewriter.
It doesn't look like a modern typewriter, and I don't know where you put the paper. Like, it's sort of like a circle thing. And
maybe that's true.
It looks like a giant piano type thing that you can type.
It's
It
big.
is big. It is big.
Although I remember back in the what are we talking? Late 80s, I think it was. My mother got one of the first word processors on the university campus, and it was a purpose-built desk.
Oh wow!
Built into it, and the floppy disks were the 10 and a quarter inch or something.
Diamond disc, an Edison diamond disc.
Yeah, no, but they were literally they're like that big, square, and the big disk drive would be down near your legs, and then you'd have the giant screen, and it holds
one letter per disc. Or
yeah,
something
pretty
like
much,
that.
and all it would do obviously is word processing, and if you wanted to italicize, you got to put in a little star shape.
It is mind blowing how far we have moved,
and it was actually probably not a lot smaller than that, like not a lot.
This is a beautiful contraption, though.
Really
I mean, they're teasing it here. They're saying it's as unattractive as a bushel basket, but I'm like, no, this is a beautiful thing made of walnut and brass.
And there are some goddamn attractive bushel baskets if they're woven out of the right kind of cane.
No doubt.
Delightful.
Anyway, he won the gold medal at the Crystal Palace Exposition 1856.
Typewriter exposition?
No, just general inventions. All inventions.
Of all inventions.
All inventions. He won gold.
Nice.
Typewriter. No, he was like, he was 19 at the time. No, 21. And he knew full well what he had done. Someday, he predicted, boys will be taught to write their names only. All the rest will be played on this literary piano.
The literary piano.
Yeah, I know. It's a bit grandiose.
It's delightful. Well, poetry is in the magazine too.
Yeah, exactly. But small sidebar. Have you heard of like Crystal Palace in London?
Yes.
Yeah. Burnt down not long after. Prince Albert, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. They had one in New York too, and it burnt down as well.
What?
What are you doing here? Like, yeah.
Also, crystal's not the first thing. Like, I don't go, crystal, probably pretty flammable. You better watch for that.
I don't know. I think all buildings burnt down back those days.
I assume the crystal was held in timbers.
Yeah, oiled timbers.
Oiled timbers.
Not petrol timbers.
Naphtha.
Anyway, For the next 10 years, as well as being obviously the publisher and the patent lawyer, he worked for the next 10 years trying to adapt his typewriter to imprint raised letters which the blind could read with their fingers.
No way.
And he eventually got it. He got dies on both sides, so a stamp on both sides that would push out a raised letter. So originally raised letters like the letter A.
Yeah.
And then he realized, we could use this to type Braille. So he also invented...
So Braille already existed?
Yes, at the time, Braille was written only by hand. So you could sort of stamp it through somehow.
Got a piece of paper and a pin.
Yeah, it probably was.
I feel like it wouldn't have lasted very long. Like, I've read it twice.
This is not the history of Braille
smooth
here.
surface.
But
we should do that.
So look, I just wanted to establish he was like a solid inventory as well.
Yeah, hell yeah.
He's doing cool stuff.
But he would have been highly motivated to invent the typewriter, having been a little man with tiny fingers. Sorry, a little boy with tiny fingers.
Yeah, like a newsprint person. Yeah, he's like, fuck it. What if we could get the reporters to do this directly?
What if I didn't have to do this? What if no one ever had to do this horrible thing again?
Not a bad thing to want.
12 hours a day, overnight, because you got to get it out in the morning. Oh, Christ.
And so it was in 1849, when Beach was only 23 years old, that he first conceived the idea. Mm-hmm. His office was right on Broadway in New York, overlooked City Hall, one of the busiest sections of the city. Mm-hmm. And at the time, New York City was booming. It was like growing at rates that are shocking to people at the time. Right. I think it had gone from 100,000 to 700,000 people in the last few decades, and they were all crammed in a tiny bit down the end of Manhattan. Thousands more refugees and immigrants poured in every single day, and the streets were just clogged with horse-drawn vehicles and traffic moved just an inch at a time. Like I don't know how much.
Lots changed.
Well, that's the thing. I think
cars don't poo. I suppose that's the difference.
That's probably it. And horses and a horse carriage is bigger than a car. Like you put two horses and a carriage.
Not my car. My car's huge.
Okay. 6 horses and a carriage.
Okay, you have me there.
Yeah, or an omnibus. Like they're taking up space, but also it's really dense. And it's not like traffic was invented, in the 21st century.
No.
It's tough to get around.
But also for me, always in my head, I know we've done stories about it. You read things about it. It's a bit part in a lot of stories. The amount of shit, like unimaginably colossal amounts of shit.
You know that there was a lot of people that their job was just to shovel volumes and volumes of manure.
Yeah, and for once we don't mean that as a metaphor. What's your job? I shovel shit all day. No, I literally shovel shit.
So they had public transport.
Yeah,
and that was just more horses.
Yeah. On
a big carriage. You have an omnibus or a streetcar. And you drag along by big teams of draft horses. And you get lots of axles breaking, horses doing horsey business. They're like winning and shying. And
banging each other.
Yeah, probably.
I was going to take you to I'm sorry I'm late, sweetheart. 2 horses started fucking.
Oh, and I imagine
Did that happen?
Of course.
Did that happen?
Of course it possibly happened.
But surely they'd cut business.
My horses are fucking. What do you
It's a transport horse. Then why did you leave its balls on?
Or I don't know. You're generous about it.
I'd never thought of that before, though. Seriously, surely these horses have been neutered.
Yeah, they're all gelded. Surely they are.
Sorry, gelded. Yeah, it's very fancy. I forgot you came from horsey people.
I met a horse once. So
did you really? Did you shake its hoof?
I don't know. I think it's called gelding.
Yeah, it is.
As well as taking up the size of a bus, a horse carriage and stuff like that. Horses are chaotic. Like they shit everywhere, but they're also fucking everywhere and winning and shying and thinking for themselves. Harnesses get snarled. Competing drivers, just imagine New York in the 19th century.
And they don't reverse well.
No, they don't. They're terrible.
Back it up. What are you talking about?
No reversing camera on a horse.
No,
that's the hardest bit. Drivers got into fist fights. Silks and broadcloths were ruined in the crush inside the cars.
Gracious me.
Watches and breastpins vanished into the hands of pickpockets. Oh. The air was poisonous. It was said that I don't know what it's poisonous with. It might just be horse shit and dust.
Or maybe just bad attitudes.
I don't know.
Morally poisonous air.
It was said that a healthy person could not ride a dozen blocks without a headache. Traffic was so dense, it might take an hour to move a few yards. And it blows my mind that 19th century traffic could be that bad. I doubt they're following road rules like perfectly. So I imagine there's people that are taking their horses onto the footpaths or whatever, and it's just that clogged that you just get stuck. Modern martyrdom, one person summed it up, may be succinctly defined as riding in a New York omnibus. And I don't know what they mean by that, but they're saying it's bad.
Look, calling it modern martyrdom.
Yeah.
Basically, either killing yourself or putting yourself up for being killed is the same as riding on this bus.
I think they're just suggesting traffic is bad, which is
Well,
like,
I get that.
and
I get that.
so remember, this is 1850, 1849, something like that. And it's just, we always think of traffic as cars, but, cities can get clogged regardless.
So what I love is we've been fucking up cities for 2 centuries nearly.
Possibly longer.
Good for us.
So day after day, the noise floated up to Beach. And then day after day, he'd have to go into it and fight for an hour to get home to the middle bit of Manhattan now. But he's going uptown.
Dude, walk.
Possibly. I think there just weren't other possibilities.
Yeah.
The situation was desperate. What could be done to speed up public transportation in New York? The way Beach saw it, there was 2 possibilities. You go up or you go down. Going up means building an elevated road on top of the existing road.
Yes.
And remember, rail is not a thing yet.
Okay.
So you basically put a giant bridge structure over the top, and so you can double the amount of traffic by having more and more people. And a little bit of me wishes that 19th century New York had gone that insane and gone
hell yeah.
hell yeah. You just go,
a horse on ramp would be.
Well, this is the thing, a horse on ramp. Beach didn't like elevated roads, but for a variety of reasons. They're noisy, they're unsightly, but dangerous. He was worried about having horses going up on top of these sort of big viaduct type things.
And you know what? He should be.
Yes. Yeah, I don't want to be controlling a horse when you can fall off the side of something. So
Good God.
No. On a trestle 10 or more feet above the street, there would be no controlling them. Dozens of unlucky passengers would plunge to their deaths each year.
That is unlucky.
It would be unlucky. But going down.
Yeah.
That's something that excited Beach. He's like, all right.
You can't fall down from down.
No, you can't fall down.
And you don't fall up because gravity.
And this seems to be his description in Scientific American. The first description ever, anywhere, of a subway. The plan is to tunnel Broadway its entire length, he wrote in Scientific American, with openings at every corner. There'll be 2 tracks with a footpath running between them, the whole to be brilliantly lighted with gas. The cars, to be drawn by horses, would stop 10 seconds at every corner and let people up to walk up the street.
Yeah.
Anyway, he thought this would be good, but he was a little bit worried about the horses underground. And
the gas didn't factor into it.
Well, yeah, there you go. But also, just to remind that electric and gasoline engines hadn't been invented. So the only other alternative that was on the horizon was your steam train. And you know,
Cool.
big belching steam train full of smoke and dust coming up, like insane.
Perfect.
And he's like, that's impossible.
Steam train subway, that's hilarious.
Impossible. Yeah, exactly. People would never ride in a tunnel with those soot belching monsters.
No, they'd do it once and then be dead.
This is a very 19th century way of describing the problem. White shirts would be turned black by the smoke. Cinders would fly in the windows and set fire to the ladies' garments.
Lordy.
Further, too many boilers burst far too frequently. An explosion could mean a cave-in. Those who weren't scalded to death by escaping steam would be buried alive. One such disaster would mean the end of the subway for all time.
He's not painting a nice picture.
No. He loved the idea of going underground, but he's like, how do you make it work?
Horses.
How do you make it work? So
Balloon cannon.
time passed. Beach looked for it. He pushed the idea as much as he could in Scientific American. But then in the 1860s, he got an idea from England, and a new plan began to take shape in his mind. So the basic principle seems to have been laid out first by a London tinkerer called George Medhurst. In 1812...
Tinkerer, not tinker.
Tinkerer.
Okay.
Tinkerer, like inventor guy.
Yeah.
1812. He put out a pamphlet with totally 1812 type title, Calculations and Remarks, tending to prove the practicability, effects, and advantages of a plan for the rapid conveyance of goods and passengers upon an iron road through a tube of 30 feet in area by the power and velocity of air.
So that's the title, and then the body of it says, see title. Point made.
So did you catch the key bit in there?
Air.
Through a tube 30 feet in area by the power and velocity of air.
Yeah. Pneumatics.
Pneumatic. No, yes.
We're going to put a horse in a pneumatic tube and let's see what happens.
Yes. So, okay, the underlying idea had been known since like the ancient Greeks, like the Greek mathematician Hero of Alexandria. Hero of Alexandria.
Name?
But Medhurst mapped it out first.
This is pneumatics?
Yes.
Okay.
An hollow tube or archway must be constructed the whole distance of iron, brick, timber, or any other material that would confine the air. and of such dimensions as to admit a four-wheeled carriage to run through it.
Mm-hmm.
The tube must be made airtight and of the same form and dimensions throughout, having a pair of cast iron wheel tracks securely laid along the bottom. And the carriage must be nearly the size and form of the tube, so as to prevent any considerable quantity of air from passing by it. So basically, they're making an old school carriage, in a tube, and the carriage has to have like a bum bit on it that is the size of the tube.
A big bustle. And we're talking what? Iron, brick, and timber?
Yes.
If someone says to me, build something airtight, those are definitely my three go-to materials.
Look, they're the materials they have at the time. Like,
I know, I get that, but like really, none.
Brick.
None.
No, I get that.
I don't get brick because it's not porous at all. Timber, no breathing. And iron.
They were more porous times. They didn't have super good
They'd
seals.
seal it with what, like pitch?
Of course they would.
Seal
It's
it
all
with
tar.
pitch. Yeah.
If the air is forced into the mouth of the tube behind the carriage by an engine of sufficient power, it will be driven forward by the pressure against it.
An engine of sufficient power. I'm going to get that T-shirt. Just says an engine of sufficient power.
That's nice.
No context.
Just owning it. Owning it, that you are that engine. So in the 1850s, people began embracing this on a small scale. First being like a 1.5-inch pipe, which is like...
Not great for commuting.
3.5 centimeters. No, not great for commuting at all. And this was in London, designed to suck instructions between two buildings, one to the stock exchange and one to another building.
Yep.
Something like 300 meters. So they'd suck it through by pneumatic pressure.
That's awesome.
I just got to confess, I worked at checkout when I was a kid. And you know, when you're making a lot of cash and you're like, all right, time to put it in and you roll up the cash and put it in a little thing and put it in the suction tube. And I was like, God damn, that is the coolest thing in the world. I love it so much. I am such a fan of the pneumatic suction device.
I was mesmerized when I was a little munchkin as well. They would do that. You know, you'd be at Coles or wherever, and they'd be and they go, hang on a minute.
I also think,
and I imagine they went into mysterious, distant places.
Well, this is what I'm also imagining. If you're a boss guy, if you're like, you know, I'll tell you about a boss in a bit. There's a boss in this story.
Okay.
But if you're sitting in a little office and just every few minutes a little thunk, thunk, thunk of bag of cash just comes to you, like that is the boss's dream. This is
you'd wake up in the night hearing that in your sleep and screaming.
No, because every time is good.
Like it's your cash.
It's your cash. There is never a little grenade or a little turd or a
someone. Were you ever tempted
to put a turd in there
or something?
I sadly was not.
Like a rat, live snake. Surprise!
See, look, yes, I don't doubt that someone somewhere has put a bad present in
a taipan in your
a taipan.
Why not?
A taipan.
Gonna bother.
A lot of them were looking at sending mail around, and now they still exist in various places, usually in hospitals and things like that.
And the Royal Society, because they're old-fashioned.
Yeah, maybe. But packages and mail, that's small fry. It's people. It's people.
Yes.
That's what I care about.
Yes.
So the first heroes to get sucked through a tube were the Duke of Buckingham and his chums.
Did it mess up the feathers on his helmet and the badges on his chest?
I couldn't find a photo. I couldn't confirm which Duke of Buckingham there were. That's the problem with these fancy names. Is like you don't know which one it is.
Like Duke's just below like monarch.
Yeah, it's high. It's
Pop
high.
me in a tube and suck me along it.
Oh yeah. And do you want to guess how long his tube was?
Pardon me? I'm going to go with miles.
Yes. So the Duke of Buckingham and his chums, they were the chair of the pneumatic dispatch company. So they were experimenting. They had access to the technology. They said, all right, make us a tube 4.5 feet high. And
cool. So you have to squat or curl up in a ball.
Well, as they said, assume the recumbent posture.
Lie down, sit down.
Lie down. I think they had some sort of vehicle made for them.
Banana lounge.
And 2 miles long.
Oh.
They got into a little car and were sucked along. This is 1866. Were sucked along this tube, this dark tube. It's got to be dark.
Of course it does.
2 miles.
To be fair, all pneumatic
minutes.
tubes are dark.
I am
5 minutes.
5 minutes. 5 minutes of being sucked. But 5
what
minutes.
What do they have? They had a bunch of footmen going.
Just remember that this is a mile in 2.5 minutes, which I can't possibly convert that to anything real.
No,
but that's fast. Like there are speeds that they're achieving in pneumatic transport that are unheard of any other means at the moment.
That's true.
And so they were pretty impressed.
Are we going to talk about the brakes later, or we'll get to that later? Is slowing down a strong suit?
No, the other people slow you down. Like you
The
just
other people.
or you sort of at the end. No, you don't have brakes. There are no brakes because
technology.
Can I just a little aside? So this is have you seen family crests? They're divided in 4 where you've got all the different bits of the family.
Yeah.
This is the Duke of Buckingham's family crest. I'm like,
that's a freaking patchwork quilt.
Like it's got 700 different families represented on his and many of them multiple times. It's like, okay, we came back into this one. It's like, what the fuck?
That's odd.
It's yeah.
Because from a distance you go, oh, red smudge, that must be Buckingham.
Alfred Beach.
Yep.
Is like, goddamn, that there is the solution. We don't need no horse.
No.
We don't need no stinking train. We got to suck people through.
Yep.
In an 1868 article on the subject, he said, this is it. A tube, a car, a revolving fan, little more is required. The ponderous locomotive with its various appurtenances is dispensed with, and the light aerial fluid that we breathe is substituted for the motor. Hence, the roadway and cars may be very light. The whole pneumatic way being undercover, the roadbed is preserved from damage by the elements, and the transit of the cars is not impeded by snow, ice, floods, or falling rocks. The tube forms the bridges over small streams, dives under broad waters, and rests securely on marshes.
So falling rocks were a big problem in New York at the time?
Anything that he's saying it solves everything.
Right, not just in New York.
Solve everything.
Not just in New York.
Yeah, he's saying other places might like this as well.
Bigger. Okay.
He set up a demonstration first at the American Institute Fair, which is sort of like it's the
Institute Fair.
Yeah, it's just it's like a expo.
Yeah.
Expo.
Yeah.
And in 1867, he made a demonstration, a 6-foot tube, and it had a little car with seats for 10 passengers, and it went the length of a building. So in sort of inside a building, and it would suck people along.
Assume it didn't take long. Length of a building is a standard measure. I get that. So it's between and. Yep.
But he's demonstrating to New York.
Yeah, it works.
But
yep.
Not really. That's not the demonstration he wants. He wants a real demonstration. So he was determined to seek a charter from the legislature in New York to start building a subway for New York powered by pneumatic engines.
Hell yes.
But there was a problem.
Oh.
And the problem, as I said before, was a boss. His name was Boss Tweed. Have you ever heard of Boss Tweed?
No. Well, I've heard of it as a fabric.
Boss Tweed.
What kind of tweed is that? It's Boss Tweed.
I'll show you a picture of there's Boss Tweed.
Our boss.
Boss Tweed.
Top hat.
The only way to describe him is amongst the most corrupt people you have ever heard of. Wildly corrupt. Like
big call.
No.
Wow.
He's in the charts. Like I don't have a full ranking, but he is right up the top.
Wow. So he invented corruption.
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
William Magear Tweed. He was a state senator, commissioner of public works, grand sachem of Tammany Hall.
Sachem.
He stood at the top of the greatest concentration of civic power in New York's history.
Wow.
And he just used it all the time. I'll give you a little bit of history. He was born in 1823. Mm-hmm. He'd started his career as the toughest brawler in the roughest fire company in the city. So I think this was a time when fire companies were very different. They weren't civic-minded. If you were insured, then they'd put out the fire for you. If they weren't, then
didn't they just steal shit too?
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so. And that was the rough company, and he was the rough guy at the top of that.
King Rough.
So when he's what are we talking? 28, 29, he ran for alderman of the city and he won. And he went to Washington as a congressman. And then he started accumulating power in New York. He took a variety of commissions and used them just for cash. Now here's a few examples. This is just you go.
Corruption time.
Dude, you're egregious.
Yeah.
He controlled a furniture company, which mysteriously won the contract to provide sofas and desks for the city, like in official buildings.
Coincidence?
He'd buy them at $50 and charge the city $5,000.
Oh.
Yeah.
Hundredfold.
His New York printing company printed the city's forms and those of every, he is on the council and he owns the company that is printing the city's forms and those of every insurance company too. It absorbed three other companies larger than itself and 4 smaller ones because it cornered the market. All other companies were afraid to do business that would compete with Tweed.
So he's efficient. he cuts corners, he streamlines, he gets shit done.
He does.
Yeah.
His manufacturing stationery company It furnished the supplies for the city's schools. Each month, it delivered 6 reams of paper, 24 ink pen holders, ink bottles, sponges, rubber bands, rulers, things like that. I don't know why the schools are running out of rulers so much. And then it would send a bill for $10,000 to the school commissioner, who was himself.
So there's accountability.
I like this one. He owned the street cleaning company, and he was the street commissioner. And he would sign off the bills, and the street cleaning company didn't even own a broom. It did no cleaning. It did literally no cleaning, and he's just paying for it all the time.
So he was tech bubble before it existed.
Oh,
okay.
look, just all. There was another story. He won a contract to build New York's county courthouse, and remember, he is the person that is deciding who gets the contract.
Yeah.
He said it'd be like $250,000. 3 years later, it was $8 million. $8 million over budget. Including like outrageous amounts for carpets and plastering and furniture and things like that. So he's just charging everywhere.
I like also the language. He won the contract.
Oh, I know. So he obviously, had a ring, like it was the Tammany ring, Tammany Hall.
Yeah.
And he obviously had a lot of people that were also benefiting from this.
Of course.
But
that's because he's civic minded.
It's thought that between 1869 and 1971, so like 2 or 3 years, he stole something between $45 and $200 million in those monies.
No.
Like it's thought that in that 2 or 3 years, he stole $5 billion in today's money from New York. Like it is vast sums.
I'd tip my hat if I didn't have headphones over the top of it. That's amazing.
They bribed everyone. He controlled the Democratic Party machine, and his ring bribed people to count the votes. It bribed those aside to guard the ballot boxes. It brought gangs of bewildered immigrants and rounded them up, swore them in as citizens, and herded them to the polls.
Fucking hell!
It bought the state assembly in 1866, bought the mayor of the city, and it forced the election of the governor, John Hoffman. So he owned everyone. Like he owned everyone in power.
Wow!
All the way up.
Well, there's a reason his parents called him the boss.
I don't think his parents did, but
I reckon eventually they did.
But here's the thing. For our friend Alfred Beach, he wants to build a subway.
Yeah.
And Boss Tweed is like, I don't want no subway. I control the streetcars. I get a kickback from them. And if we're going to build anything, we're going up, and I can control all of that. I'm going to make a whole bunch of money. I've got no interest in letting a subway happen.
Thanks, mate.
So Beach, he had to play it smart. Instead of asking for permission to build a subway, he went sneaky. In 1868, he asked the legislature, remember Boss Tweed's the boss here, for a postal charter. He says, look, I want to do that thing like they're doing in London, build those 2 little tubes, one for going out, one for coming back.
Yeah.
And we're going to just test the post.
Yeah.
Boss Tweed is like, I ain't got no quarrel with the post. That sounds good.
Yeah, they're not my people.
Go ahead and build it. So he got approval. And then pretty quickly, Beach said, can I just have an amendment? Instead of channeling 2, can I just dig one hole that's a little bit bigger that can fit them both in? No one noticed. And it got approved.
And by a little bit bigger, you mean human size?
Human sized.
That may not have come up in the details.
Human sized. It wasn't noticed. It was just saying, it'd be easier to, rather than building 2 tunnels.
What if I had a tunnel that was more?
So Beach had done an investigation of New York, found some nice, easy soil to dig in. And under Murray Street off Broadway, he saw it was nice and sandy. We could dig through that pretty easily. He rented the cellar of Devlin's clothing store. They went down into the bottom of the cellar, and every night they started digging a subway in secret. Over the next 58 nights, his team secretly burrowed through the earth under Broadway and Warren Street. So this is right in the middle of New York.
Which is also Manhattan, as I understand it, is famous for its schist.
I don't know what that means.
Really, like lots of rocks.
Yeah. Yes. No, he was looking for a sandy bit to dig. He wanted to make it easy.
Yeah, because not easy.
Small aside, he invented a tunneling ram. Like imagine a barrel that you can put people in. They can dig at the front, and they poop it out the back and brick it up behind them. So he invented that as well.
Of course he did.
So every night, the team of diggers would go down in there, dig for a while, brick up around it, and secretly bring the bags of dirt into wagons whose wheels had been muffled for silence. And they'd sneak out the dirt every night. And it's just all totally secret.
It's freaking cold. It's like it's a bizarre escape movie. That's incredible.
It is a weird Great Escape thing that they're digging at night. They've kept it all super secret with slight permission, but not real permission. And
you said we could dig a hole. We are.
They blocked anyone from coming in except for like the people who were working for them and some officials from one of the aqueduct departments that were checking the postal tube. So they were all like, okay, this is what you're doing.
One of the aqueduct departments.
But they blocked the mayor. Like the mayor is like, I want to know, what are you guys doing down there? They blocked the mayor. And that's why
it's a surprise.
You know, that story in the New York Times, you know, the myth and the humbug. Like you could imagine a city going, we're hearing rumors of something weird being dug under Broadway.
Well, and they're not wrong.
Yeah. At one point, they hit a wall that appeared to be like an old fort. So they're like,
really,
they're like 10 meters underground, sort of thing, like 30 feet. Or something
even
like
then, there were these buried things.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't know the age of the fort. So they tunneled up to it, and then eventually this brick wall sort of filled, or a stone wall filled the whole face of the tunnel.
Okay.
His son is the foreman, and he said, "Oh, quick, go get Dad." And Alfred comes down in his pajamas, and he's like, "Oh, god damn! All right, take it apart." But he was super worried. He was like, "The street's going to collapse on me, and everyone's going to see this tunnel that I've dug, and I'm going to be like totally exposed to what's happening here." They took the wall down, and he was a bit panicked, but they kept going. They dug for 58 nights, and then they'd got as far as he wanted. But then he spent the next 2 years and $350,000 of his own money. It seems to be like $7 million. Wow. Making it fancy. Because he knows, being an inventor and a sort of chaperone of inventors. Yeah. If you want people to take it, you got to sell the sizzle.
You got to line the tunnel with leather and ermine.
You got to make people want to do it. Like, you don't want to look like a weird dungeon or something like that. You've got to make it exciting.
Well, only a certain type of people would be interested. Yes.
Exactly. So yeah, he was like, it's got to be both a thing that's practical, but also excites the imagination and makes the fancies like it. So he built a huge waiting room. It's got a grand piano, ornate wooden trimmings, frescoed walls. Remember, all of this is illegal. He's doing this all in secret. Paintings, a bubbling fountain filled with goldfish. The tunnel was framed in handsome brickwork, and 2 stately bronze effigies of Mercury stood alongside.
Wow.
A placard above the tunnel hung the words "Pneumatic 1870 Transit."
Okay.
Everything was brightly lit. Everything with like the brightest gas lights that you can get.
It sounds like he's done a spectacular job.
He did, and he's got a small train car down there. Okay. It sat 22 people and was richly upholstered. Now, of course, you need a fan to blow people. The fan that he found was from the Roots company that they used to ventilate mines. Goddamn huge fan.
Makes sense.
It's just imagine a box that's the size of half a tennis court and cubic. Like it's just huge. It is a huge fan. The Roots patent force rotary blower, nicknamed the Western Tornado, but it's like a giant box that is blowing volumes and volumes of air.
The Western Tornado.
Apparently, it's got an air intake valve up on the street level.
Which would be easy to camouflage.
Well, it's just a grate. And so I think New Yorkers are very used to grates from the subways and things now. At the time, I don't think they had ever seen things like that. And so apparently, occasionally you'd walk past there and your hat would get sucked off onto the grate, or it'd get blown up in the air going the other way.
Marilyn Monroe dress.
Yes, you very Marilyn Monroe.
Poof up.
I think yes, it would have been the 1870s Marilyn Monroeing.
If it weren't for him, that famous scene would never have existed.
I think the problem is 1870s clothes are all like they're made of 8-inch wool. And
they're nailed to your ankles, so there's no chance of anyone catching a glimpse.
Yeah, exactly. When the fan was in blowing mode, the car, so this is the train carriage, gently but swiftly flew down the tracks at about 6 miles per hour until it tripped a wire that caused a bell to ring at the other end at the other station, and then the fan would go into suck mode, and it would suck the car back.
Okay.
For an equivalently smooth ride.
There were brakes.
And then Beach sent out the invitations.
6 miles an hour.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's 10 kilometers an hour. It's not super fast, but
no.
He sent out the invitations for launch day.
Yep.
February 27th, 1870.
Yep.
All the visitors came down. Dignitaries, the high-minded of New York. They're like, "What the hell is going on?"
But they were sneaking down, right?
They went down into the basement of Devlin's clothing store. Special doors that have been sealed to keep the pressure in.
I bet.
And the subway's waiting room alone astonished reporters. This is the New York Times. Its frescoed walls, elegant paintings, grand piano, bubbling fountain, goldfish tank, all were ecstatically described. But most of all, the press was overwhelmed by the great blowing machine that propelled the car.
Yeah.
It sent it skimming along the track like a sail before the wind. And once the car had reached the end of the track, calmly drew it back again.
Cool.
So people all wrote their own descriptions. Like everyone's doing the social media at the time. We took our seats in the pretty car, the gayest company of 20 that ever entered a vehicle. The conductor touched a telegraph wire on the wall of the tunnel, and before we knew it, so gentle was the start, we were in motion, moving from Warren Street down Broadway. In a few moments, the conductor opened the door and called out, "Murray Street," with a businesslike air. That made us all shout with laughter. The car came to a rest in the gentlest possible style and immediately began to move back to Warren Street, where it no sooner arrived. And our atmospheric ride was most delightful, and our party left the car satisfied by the actual experience.
Yeah. So this is on rails, right?
It's got like, if you can have a look
Wheels.
here, there seems to be a sort of rail underneath it, but it definitely seals in the tube.
Yeah.
So it's getting pushed along on a rail sort of thing, but there's
Yeah.
no motor at all
Yeah.
in the thing. Another person went up to the blower. After our ride, it's only natural, of course, that we should wish to explore the source from whence came the pneumatic pressure
Yes.
that had so mysteriously carried us along Broadway. Accordingly, under the guidance of one of the polite officials of the company, provided with lanterns, we entered the air passage or duct, which opens into the waiting room near the mouth of the tunnel.
Mhm.
As we went in, we felt a gentle breeze. But after we arrived at the mouth of the great blower, and while we were gazing in wonder at the motions of the gigantic blowing wings, the engineer put on more steam and increased the speed so that the blast instantly became a hurricane of frightful power.
Oh,
Hats, bonnets, shawls, handkerchiefs, and every loose thing was snatched away from our hands and swept into the tunnel.
not a bonnet. Not a bonnet.
I do imagine this. It's blowing a lot of
Well,
force.
it's got to move. What is it? 22 people in a fancy carriage.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
not nothing.
Oh, like it's beautiful.
Oh, it's cool as hell.
Boss Tweed was pissed.
Was he?
Boss Tweed is like, what in fuck?
I will
What
not.
are you doing here? He was furious at this. So of course, Beach had received permission to construct a small tube only to see if you could send letters. By building a whole subway in secret, he had willfully defied not only Boss Tweed but the whole legislature. There was talk of destroying the tunnel, throwing Beach in jail. But Beach, knowing the power and determination of his opposition, he was like, no, I'm going to fight it.
Destroy the tunnel. What a-
He said New York needs a subway. He'd go before the legislature up in Albany, so not the city,
actual
but
capital.
the state government. No one had stood up to Tweed before. Like he controlled everything, Boss Tweed. No one stood up to him.
Because he's called Boss Tweed, all I can think of is the old Dukes of Hazzard and Boss
Oh
Hogg.
no, well, Boss Hogg would be based on Boss Tweed. Like the
I
idea,
hope so.
like Boss Tweed, it's a mythical level of
Yeah.
tyranny,
Yeah.
corruption of
Yeah.
someone who wasn't he wasn't like a president or a governor himself. He just controlled those people. Beach applied for a bill to build a subway for all of New York. He and his friends wrote a bill that would go before the legislature. It's called the Beach Transit Bill. And interestingly, they put it to a vote in the state legislature in 1871, where they'd build a subway for all of New York. And it was overwhelmingly supported by the legislature.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
Boss Tweed had put up a bill of his own where they'd build a viaduct, like an
So is
elevator.
his bill? No.
No, he's like, I want to build the other thing. I want to build the other thing. And they approved both of them. Like
Cool, what a good
the
idea.
legislature approved both of them.
Yeah. Great.
Beach's is a lot cheaper. He's saying mine's 5 million, and Boss Tweed is like, mine's going to be 100 million.
Beaches was cheaper.
Beach's is cheap. Well,
Okay.
Boss Tweed's got to factor in corruption. Like,
Oh,
you
yeah,
gotta-
good point. Good point. Yeah, that corruption is expensive. That's true.
I got other bills to pay. I need
Yeah,
some
yeah.
diamonds.
Yeah, that's
and,
true. That's true.
Both of them came to the governor, and weirdly, the governor was owned by Boss Tweed,
Oh,
and
shocked.
and
so which way did it go?
he vetoed Beach's. The newspapers were enraged. They were like, how can the governor have read these things? It's like it's too fast. 24 hours, you've just vetoed it straight away.
Spoiler alert, he didn't.
Yeah, well, there you go. The veto, said the Tribune, was long since prepared. Of course, it was to be expected that as long as Tammany, that's Boss Tweed,
Yeah.
had no hand in the scheme and saw no chance of converting it into a swindle, its influence could be used against it. But for the sake of decency, the tracks might have been covered up. So Beach was like, goddamn. Yeah. But he said, all right, well, let's try again. Let's wait another year. It's been vetoed, but we can try again. And so another year, they kept the train open the whole time. So
Okay.
people could come down, they'd pay 25 cents a go, and they'd get sucked back and forth along the tracks.
Would you pay 25 cents to be sucked back and forth?
God damn it. Yes, I would.
Yes, you would.
Yes,
Who
there you go.
Who wouldn't? It's a transport joke.
Yeah, it was a transport.
Yeah.
But he earned, I think it earned like $100,000. He donated that all to charity.
Well, that's not going to help his legal defense.
Well, that's the problem. He's kind of expecting that at some point.
So
He went a second time,
Yeah.
and again, Governor Hoffman vetoed.
Huh.
Then he went a third time, and this is where it gets interesting because in the meantime, Boss Tweed has fallen.
Oh.
Like the New York Times, a bookkeeper had found evidence of all of Tweed's swindles.
Oops.
Put it before the New York Times, and everyone was like, God damn. Like, it's weird because he was super corrupt, and he actually seems to have got his comeuppance. Like, they published day after day, New York Times published all of the lists of how much he's swindled. People are pissed, and
But is he one of these doofus villains in movies that like, oh, yeah, of course I kept the full accounting record book?
I think so. I think it's because he's the commissioner. He's signing off on, for example, I'm the street commissioner. Here's $10,000 to clean the streets.
So easy enough to go, oh, they didn't get cleaned.
Yeah, exactly. So something like that.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, by 1872, Boss Tweed has fallen. He's in jail. He ends up dying in jail.
Jailed.
Yeah, he's
He
jailed.
happened,
Like,
right. They really got it.
And so for Beach, he's like, all right, this is our third chance. We can do it. His bill passes the legislature, goes through the Senate, goes to the governor. The governor signs it off. It's a new governor now. It's all good, and it's signed in 1873.
Yeah.
But he's lost a lot of his money. But more importantly, there's been a recession. Like, there's not only a recession, like the stock market had crashed in like 1873. Prices had risen. So it's like tens of $1 million more than he had expected.
Yeah.
He talked to all of his wealthy friends, but they're no longer interested in investing in it. There's just no money for anything of this anymore.
Right, okay.
So while it was approved in 1872, by 1873, there's no money. There's no money for anything. So he proved that you could make a pneumatic subway, but by 1873, there's no money to do it, and
fucking evaporated.
Eventually it all disappears, and it's so annoying. Like he got to this point where he got past he built this thing in secret.
Yeah.
He got past all the political hurdles, and then the money just disappeared.
And he built it out of like leather and shit, which, when was it Elon Musk or the other bugger? Who wanted to build a pneumatic tube? You're probably going to get to that.
Elon Musk will, yeah.
But
Wants to.
I haven't heard anything about bricks or leather.
No. And in secret, no less.
Yeah.
Beach was a crushed, heartbroken man.
Mm.
People say that after it finally came out, he was a different person.
Yeah.
His friends remarked that his conversations were less stimulating, his observations less acute and rarely witty.
I say, Beach, you no longer stimulate me with your conversation.
But he seemed kinder and gentler. Particularly to the young men who arrived at his desk.
But beaten men usually do.
Yeah.
Once you've been beaten, you get kinder.
He'd stopped inventing, but he was much more interested in publishing and helping other inventors.
Oh.
So he started new journals, one after the other, all sort of like weird spin-offs of Scientific American. A whole bunch of them.
Scientific Arkansas, Scientific South American.
La America Scientifica.
Oh, there you go.
Scientifica.
Ole.
Yeah, exactly. In
Arriba.
Spanish and distributed to Central and South America.
Okay.
He taught himself Spanish, and he raised a whole bunch of money for different charities. One of his chief projects, when he got his finances back, was the Beach Institute in Savannah, which he endowed and furnished a free education for freed slaves.
Oh, damn.
I like this. He felt no bitterness toward any man, not even toward the convicted Tweed who went to Ludlow Street Jail and died there about 6 years later.
Big cuddly fella.
Yeah. Gradually, the pneumatic subway was forgotten, and with it, Alfred Beach himself.
Yeah.
When he died of pneumonia, it's just pneumatic.
I was going to say it's very pneumatic. Yeah.
Something.
It was written in the stars.
In 1896, at the age of 69, he'd totally faded from public view.
Yeah.
While he was the editor and publisher of Scientific American, he wasn't famous as doing things anymore.
Okay.
Obituary in the New York Times only ran for a few inches. 2 years later, the building in which the subway had started, Devlin's, clothing store, was destroyed by a spectacular fire.
Cool.
And that destroyed all of the ornate trappings down in the bottom of the subway. When the building was rebuilt in 1900, everything was concreted up down in the cellar.
Of course it was.
1912, New York had finally committed to building a subway, and workers cutting through one of the new subway paths for the City Hall station accidentally came into Beach's tunnel. And people had totally forgotten that it was even there.
So it's literally like, holy shit.
Only 40 years later, and it might have been bizarre. You're like,
That
I'm digging in this brand new subway, and fuck me, there's already a
Here's the
subway
old one.
station down there. And
That's
it's like,
wild.
would have been just wild. All of the wooden fixtures had rotted a bit, but the air was dry and warm, and the tunnel was in good condition. The train was still sitting there on the tracks, ready to go. You can't move it out. So was the blower. So was all of this stuff.
That's wild.
Even the tunneling bore was at the end there, just waiting to dig more, because who moves this stuff out? Yeah. Today, all of his tube is part of the City Hall station.
Okay.
And there's apparently, or some people say yes, some people say no, a small plaque marking that it was there, but all of it was just dug out when they were doing the City Hall station.
Bastards.
One of the giants of America's mechanical age. And I truly think, an amazing inventor who I just love the idea that he was just like, just go and do it, and we'll make it ourselves.
And sneaky.
As you said, there are many people now who are interested in the idea of pneumatic tubes. Elon Musk doing Hyperloop, but there's a whole bunch of different teams in a bunch of countries around the world. And there's total reasons for doing this. You can make, it's like a train type system that has total low pressure, and for efficiencies, you can move people around super fast. You hear stories of, even in Beach's day, they made a theory that you could get up to 700 miles an hour.
Oh God!
Like that, this is
underground.
Which I like the idea that 700 miles an hour with a carriage is it's some sort. But the theory stands. You certainly can get up to super high velocities, and in some situations, we could be moving transport people around like that.
It's weird. So it's another example of where we had this thing, and then it either got lost or forgotten, or some shit face who had vested capital interest shat on something.
I was thinking about this. There were some people that were saying, "Oh, there's no way that pneumatic transport, they could have made enough engines and stuff like that." And I was like, "Yeah." I mean, obviously, it looks wacky now. It looks super naive that you could put people into a tube and that would have blow, like a little carriage around.
Oh, that's cool.
But it's also, that was a prototype. Yeah. And he built a working prototype that literally moved 22 people plus a carriage. And so we're talking like a ton of material or something, moving it around. And if you develop any technology for 150 years, you can get a lot better than that. So I kind of feel like, this is such a missed opportunity for a beautiful little thing that they were so close to getting. And
another one, like what, original cars, there were electric cars before there were freaking petrol cars. You're like,
how did we take the wrong one? And you can blame Boss Tweed, but there's thousands of these Boss Tweeds that are just like, I've got a vested interest.
Yep, all the time.
And instead, I think everything I read about Alfred Beach, he seems like a totally good person. He helped people he could.
That was his flaw.
He looked after. I know.
Stop being so nice, mate.
He didn't bribe. He didn't want to bribe Boss Tweed. And New York could have had a pneumatic subway, but you don't.
That's annoying.
There you go.
Thanks for an annoying story. But no, it's another one on the list. It's another one on the list of coulda, shoulda, but didn't because of dick.